if you kindly allow me. Welcome to the participants, all the participants. Today we have a seminar on a very unique and interesting topic about women participation in Islamic finance. And we are very grateful to have Dr. Aishath Muneeza here with us. She has a very vast background of contribution in Islamic finance. Dr. Aisha, welcome for this seminar, and we look forward for a very important discussion about the role of women in Islamic finance. Just a few minutes. In Pakistan, like all other developing countries, again, women participation in the finance sector is very low. And as per the recent study conducted by Karandas, Pakistan, there is only women participation in finance is only 13% as compared to male participation, which is around 47%. So in terms of financial inclusion, obviously, in Pakistan, we have a limited participation. But good thing is, in last few years, like 2021 and 2022, the ratio of this participation had increased tremendously. In 2020, it was only 7%. However, in 2022, it went up to 13%. So there is a double, almost jump in the participation, but it's still very low as compared to the region. So I'm sure with your experience and the expertise, you please enlighten us about how Pakistan can avail the opportunity of inclusion and diversity in Islamic finance also. So I will hand over to you. Thank you so much again. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your kind words and for that introductory remarks. It's very important to know the current position before we proceed with the presentation. So you've given the background of it. Thank you very much for that. So let's proceed with today's presentation first, and maybe afterwards we can have some interactive sessions where we could understand the perspective of the audience, as well as if you have any question, then you're most welcome to ask as well. So without further ado, I will move into the presentation, which I intend to present. It won't take that long because the important thing is to have the interactive session whereby we can discuss certain issues and understand the ways in which it can be resolved. So today, the presentation topic which I'm going to deliver is the role of women in Islamic finance. Now, when it comes to Islamic finance, we need to understand that Islamic finance is part of the finance industry. However, whenever we mention about Islamic finance, we're talking about the financial activities which are conducted in line with Sharia or Islamic law. It's my duty, first of all, to congratulate the organizer for having this type of webinar. And I am privileged to be here to discuss my perspective on this topic. So this is the content which I intend to cover today. I'd like to see a certain aspect of the topic before we go deep into the challenges, recommendations, and the way forward. There will be some discussion on whether women can participate in the Islamic finance industry. And also we need to understand the current role played by women in the development of Islamic finance. So when it comes to the introductory part, I think we all understand that women can participate in Islamic finance industry as long as whatever we do is within the limits of Islam. Therefore, following the Sharia parameters, whether we are a male or a female, is mandatory. And we have to keep this in our mind when we are dealing with any type of interactive activity that we do in the world. When it comes to barriers, we understand that there are physical barriers as well as invisible barriers that inhibits women participation in Islamic finance industry. So sometimes the invisible barriers are not unique to Islamic finance industry, but these barriers exist in all societies, and these barriers are not something which is special to Islamic finance industry. It can be applicable to all types of industry as well. Therefore, it's very important for us to understand the physical and invisible barriers so that we can find the reasons or the ways in which we can overcome the challenges faced, and then perhaps we can come up with some ways in which we could resolve the issues for the sustainable development of women participation in Islamic finance industry, because gender diversity is very important. Now, there are certain misconceptions about rights of women in Islam. Some people have this misconception that there is no right for women to have a proper education, no right to choose husband, no right to initiate divorce, no right to have own wealth after marriage, no right to property, no right to have a career. So these misconceptions can be divided into categories of social, moral, personal, and economic. What is important to understand is that these are just misconceptions, and we need to know that in Islam, women is not marginalized because of their gender. They have right to get education, right to choose husband, right to initiate divorce, for example, khula, and then they have the right to even have their own wealth after marriage, and they can even own their own property under their own name, and also they have a right to have a career, but whatever is done should be done within the limits of Islam. Therefore, Sharia parameters needs to be followed. Let's look at one of the questions normally we have whenever we talk about this topic, that is, can women participate in the Islamic finance industry? The short answer is that Islam does not prohibit women to participate in the Islamic finance industry, whether to pursue a career in Islamic finance industry or whether to become a client or a customer in the Islamic finance industry. It doesn't matter, you can do it. So how do we know that we can do it or not? If we look at the historical context, we find that in fighting in the battles, in politics, in education, in trade and commerce, there is women participation witnessed. One of the prominent examples we see is when it comes to education, the role of Aisha radiallahu anha. She memorized Quran and is an expert on interpretation of Quran. And if we look at Asma bint Yazid, she is an expert in making speeches, and Asma bint Umays was an expert in dream interpretation as well. In trade and commerce, we have the prominent example of Khadija radiallahu anha, who's a successful businesswoman who used to send caravans to different countries. And likewise, we have number of examples that we can cite from history, whereby women participation in different aspects of society is being witnessed. So because of this, we understand that the roles and responsibilities shouldered by women can be extended to more than what they do within a household. It can be in politics, it can be in education, it can be in trade and commerce, it can be in fighting in the battlefield as well, as long as they do it within the parameters of Sharia. In Islam, women can play multidimensional roles in the society, which means that they can become doctors, they can become nurses, they can become accountants, Sharia scholars, so on and so forth. Again, if there is any Sharia parameter that we have to consider here, that is within the limits prescribed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This simply means that whatever the you choose, you have to ensure that whatever you do is in line with what Islam has prescribed. Now let's look at the current role played by women in the Islamic finance industry. Number one, women can choose a career in Islamic finance industry. They can become a CEO or it can be involved in decision-making level, for example, sitting on the board or at senior management level positions, and also can work in financial institutions. So, for example, we see a lot of women today participating as different professionals who are involved in Islamic financial institutions. They could be sitting at the counter to provide services. They could be a Sharia scholar. They could also be a person who is in charge of accounting department, so on and so forth. And then the next one is women can also become a Sharia scholar. Now, there is a misconception in some of the societies thinking that if it is a Sharia scholar, it should be a male, otherwise, it cannot be acceptable. However, the truth is that as long as there is competency, women can even become Sharia advisors, scholars, they can even sit on Sharia advisory committees, there is no issue. And next is they can even apply for products for personal growth and economic empowerment. For example, they could apply to get financing facilities to acquire properties or even to start a business, so on and so forth. There are no limitations when it comes to gender in Islam, that only male can hold properties. It's only culture which dictates such types of activities, behaviors in countries. So we have to understand this. Now, let's look at the current status of women participation in Islamic finance industry. Do we have a lot of women involved in the global Islamic finance and Islamic economics right now? The answer is it's only handful. If we compare the figure with the male who are participating in the industry. But unfortunately, we don't have any comprehensive statistics gathered in this regard to say that, okay, this is the situation right now from a global context. There are studies which are focusing on different countries, especially countries like Malaysia. We do have some statistics available, but in some other countries, we don't have the country or domestic statistics available in this regard to show that this is what is actually happening. So there is a gap in this regard, and we need to really conduct studies to find what is actually happening in the industry at a global context. So what can be said is we have handful only. I've actually quoted here the statistics from the Islamica 500. The last Islamica 500 which I could find is in 2019. And when we look at the 500 professionals listed in that list, out of the 500, I could only find 55 who are females, which means it's only 11%. And we understand that the women participation in different parts of the world, even in Islamic finance industry, differ. And therefore, we need to understand the culture, the country context before we talk about their participation in Islamic finance industry as well. So there are certain quotations which I've put here to understand the position. Let's look at the first one. Haris Irfan, Managing Director of the European Islamic Investment Bank, told Islamic Finance News, women have virtually zero representation at board level in Islamic banks and very little at senior management. Unless this issue is addressed, the culture of Islamic finance will be little different to the culture of conventional finance. But we have to be mindful that this is a quotation given some years back. And then the second one is in the Gulf region, where much of the sector is concentrated, there are no female Islamic scholars acting as advisors to financial institutions. A key position in the sector, while there are few prominent women sitting on company boards and working as CEOs in Bahrain and Kuwait, there are notable exceptions. And the last one here is Malaysians frequently dominate lists of the most influential women in the Islamic finance sector. One list compiled by London-based magazine Isfire in 2013 named 15 Malaysians among their 20 top picks, while in another put together by Indian magazine Islamic Tijara in 2014, 7 out of 10 women chosen were from Malaysia. So we understand that it's not easy to generalize this by saying that, there are less or they are adequate or there are many, because based on the jurisdictions, the situation might be different. From these quotations, we understand that if we look at the Malaysian context, we see that there are a lot of women participating in Islamic finance industry. But if we look at GCC, the situation could be a little bit different, and elsewhere also it could be different. So these are the compilation of the women who has been highlighted in the Islamica 500 list. This is just for you to have a look at it. Okay, so if we look at this list, we understand that there are certain observations. In terms of countries, 10 are from Malaysia, 9 from the UK, 7 from UAE, 4 from Indonesia, 3 from Singapore, Saudi Arabia and USA, 2 from Kuwait, 1 from Belgium, Maldives, Japan, South Korea, Italy, Switzerland, Qatar, Luxembourg, Thailand, Burkina Faso, Brazil, Pakistan, Morocco, Nigeria. Now, if you look at the countries involved, what about the other countries? Aren't there women leading the industry? Or it's just that we don't know about them? So there is a gap in this regard. And we also see that only 15 are CEOs in terms of sectors. 7 are from government and associations, 7 from banking sector, 6 from fashion and cosmetics, 3 from law and accounting, 3 from fintech, 3 from healthcare and pharmaceuticals. So, I mean, of course, 2019 is long time back. We need to have such type of a list to do the comparison, which is not there, unfortunately, specifically focusing on the professionals of Islamic finance. Now, let's look at the challenges. When it comes to challenges, the first thing we always hear is discrimination. Next will be inequity. And the final one would be unacknowledgement. Okay, so of course, when it comes to gender, there are certain types of expectations we have for each type of gender. If it is a woman is supposed to take care of family and should have a more active role in taking care of family than the male counterpart. And in most of the societies, this is still the case. And therefore, even if women choose a career, they have to balance their family as well as a career in a much more difficult manner than males because of this. So, of course, due to the society's expectation, one cannot get away from these responsibilities dictated by culture. And when it comes to knowledge, we also see that in some countries, even if the female has same knowledge as a male counterpart, whenever jobs are given, the women might be offered a lesser salary than male. So this happens in some countries, and this is a complaint we always get. And of course, capacity is also overlooked. If let's say if you are trying to get a job in a male oriented industry such as engineering or architecture, then definitely the capacity is sometimes overlooked because priority is given to gender. And there are some people who complain that even if they get a job and even if they prove their knowledge and capacity while on the job, the moment they want to start a family and want to take leave to give birth, there are certain types of restrictions put on them to come back to their old job. they can be demoted for these reasons, so on and so forth. And of course, experience overlooked, intrinsic duties imposed by nature overlooked. So these are some of the challenges that we see. And of course, we need to understand whether, because of these challenges, whether women are marginalized by the Islamic financial institutions. So these are some of the hearsay statements which we hear in the industry over the years. Okay, so the first one is, some say it is not women who are marginalized in the finance industry, but it is the poor, deprived, and illiterate. Some say women choose to stay home and depend on the income brought by the husband or males of the family. So spending money wisely is the only role they play. Some say women have no time due to house chores to go to bank and spend time in banking institutions or other financial institutions, as they have no other person to rely to perform the house chores. Some say financial institutions are dominated by males, and women hesitate to go and get service. Some say the forms and other documents that must be dealt in a financial institution are cumbersome, and the modus operandi is something which is impossible to understand. So again, these statements cannot be generalized and applied to all jurisdictions. It depends from jurisdiction to jurisdiction how women are marginalized, and there is no data to prove that these are the sole reasons or exhaustive list of reasons why they are having these issues. Having said that, we have to look at some practical solutions that we find to overcome these challenges. So first is for poor, a bank by women and for women. So this is something which has happened in Bangladesh, whereby women-oriented financial services has been provided. And then for bankable, there are dedicated branches for ladies. For example, if you see GCC and even Sri Lanka, they have some dedicated branches for ladies to get services. So there are certain types of customized solutions that we see happening in different parts of the world, just to provide a helping hand to women. If you see, for example, Jai's Bank in Nigeria, they even have come up with a special type of a bank account that could be given to women, so that at least they encourage women to participate more in the banking sector. Okay, so without further ado, let's look at recommendations that we could have in order to overcome such barriers. Number one, it is said that we need to have mentorship program to cultivate the next generation of women. Sometimes working in a university, I get the privilege to access to a lot of students who aspire to join Islamic finance industry coming from various parts of the world. And one of the things which are mentioned by the students is that they don't have a mentor to guide them so that they understand what needs to be done, or whenever they face a challenge, how to overcome them is something which they cannot discuss with everyone. Maybe they have people who don't have experience in such things. Therefore, they believe that having a mentor would definitely assist them in going up the career ladder. So therefore, having a mentor is very, very important to women and anybody who aspires to go on with their lives and have a proper career. Next is introduction of quota system to increase women participation at decision-making level. So in many countries, women participation at the board level, at Sharia committee level is still not adequate. Now the question is, how do we increase the number of women participation on the boards and on Sharia committees? The answer is we need to introduce quota system. Why quota system? Because quota system provide opportunity for women representation on board level and Sharia committee level, so that the organization can experience gender diversity on boards and Sharia committees. And then once they understand the importance of this, automatically they would want gender balance or gender diversity on boards and Sharia committee. Right now, when there's no opportunity, there's no representation, and when there's no representation, nobody can practically understand the importance of having gender diversity and the advantages they can enjoy in doing so. Therefore, to start something which is new, it's important to have the element of force. So in this case, introduction of quota system would really help. But this does not mean that we have to give opportunity to those who doesn't have knowledge and competency and experience. Of course, whether male or females, the criteria which should be applied in terms of competency, experience, and knowledge should be the same. Okay, but it's just that we have to give priority so that women who hesitate to come and participate at this level will have the opportunity. And at the same time, organizations who hesitate to bring such changes can enjoy the benefit of it. Next is publish annually the success stories of women in the industry to motivate others. Of course, we need to see the role models, their struggles, what are the ways in which they overcame such struggles, and finally they have excelled in the industry. So all these stories need to be put in writing, or at least shown to younger generation of women who aspires to become such successful women. But this does not mean that in the process of doing this, women should be exploited. Often I hear some complaints from women saying that in the name of publishing women's stories, there are certain segment of the population who take advantage of them by saying that if you pay only, your profile will be put there. Otherwise, even if you're qualified, even if you are successful, your profiles will not be seen. And money-oriented kind of businesses are also based on this, which should not be the case. So I believe that publishing the success stories of women in the industry will motivate young generation, and definitely because of their stories, we will get inspired, and there will be more women joining the industry because of that. Next is acknowledge women participation to empower more women. Now, when it comes to women participation, sometimes we don't celebrate their participation, thinking that there's nothing to celebrate. So if we can acknowledge the women participation and use that to empower more women to join the industry, that will be also something which is significant and great. Why? Because without this acknowledgement, it would be difficult for us to attract more women to the industry, especially in those countries where there are cultural barriers for such participation. Next is OIC and multilateral organizations such as Islamic Development Bank ought to introduce special scholarships or awards for women. Now, of course, there are many programs in the finance industry which target specifically for women. But when it comes to Islamic finance industry, rarely we see scholarships or even awards which are offered specifically for women or reserved for women in that case. There are different types of awards which are given to recognize those who are participating in Islamic economics as well, but there are no reserve awards for women. But some people might disagree to reserve such awards for a specific gender. However, I believe that in order for us to showcase, we need to create opportunity for women as well, so that their capacity, qualification, competency will be showcased to the world, and more women can be inspired because of that. Now let's look at the way forward. Of course, the best time to do this could be like long time back. Okay, but we need to start from somewhere, and therefore we need to ensure that our policymakers and all the stakeholders of Islamic finance and Islamic economic industry come up with proper strategies to ensure that women talent pool is developed, and also there is more women participation in the industry, not joining the industry as a person who's working there, but also as a customer who's participating in the Islamic finance industry. So therefore, there are certain strategies that we could adopt in this regard, again, which is based on the recommendations which I have explained just now. Okay, so let's look at the 10 strategies which has been developed in this regard. Number one strategy is implementing financial programs targeting women to enhance their understanding of Islamic finance principles and products. This can be done through workshops, seminars, and online courses, of course. Now, education and awareness is very, very important. Otherwise, there is nothing we could do about this. Without proper education, proper awareness, even if we talk about increasing women participation or even male participation in the industry, that cannot happen. So this is the first step that needs to be taken. Proper education needs to be given. Number two strategy is develop Islamic financial products specifically designed to meet the needs and preference of women. This may include saving accounts, investment portfolios, and financing options tailored to women's financial goals and lifestyles. Now, this is something that needs to be customized based on the cultural barriers women face in different countries. So based on the country, we need to ensure that we come up with proper solutions in this regard. Strategy 3 is establish leadership and mentorship programs to encourage more women to pursue career in Islamic finance, highlight successful women leaders in the industry, and provide mentorship opportunities for aspiring professionals. So this is something which we need to do irrespective of the jurisdiction, because without giving a helping hand to the women out there who want to progress in life, we won't be seeing anything good happening or anything substantial happening. Strategy 4 is to promote gender diversity within Islamic finance institutions by creating inclusive workplaces, encourage equal opportunities for career growth, ensure fair compensation, and implement family-friendly policies to support work-life balance. So this strategy is very, very important, especially women who are trying to balance their career with family. We all understand that once we start a family, when we have children, our priorities might change. But if we were to balance it with the career, we need some support system from family as well as in the workplace. And therefore, having family-friendly policies in the work environment would definitely help women to progress while doing that without jeopardizing anything. Next is strategy 5, collaborate with universities and educational institutions to integrate Islamic finance into the curriculum, making it more accessible to women studying finance, economics, and related fields. Again, this is very important because normally if you go to a general university to study any subject or any course related to finance, you end up not getting any knowledge about Islamic finance. And not everybody will have the opportunity to enroll in a university that offers Islamic finance knowledge. Okay, therefore, providing these types of opportunities is very, very important. For example, in the case of INCEIF University where I work, we have come up with micro-credential courses that could be enrolled by anyone, even, for example, a housewife who wants to know about Islamic finance can enroll and do this type of program online so that their knowledge will be enhanced and they can implement the knowledge they receive without getting into a proper long-term commitment to study it. Next is strategy 6. Conduct awareness campaigns to dispel misconceptions about women's role in Islamic finance, showcase successful women in the industry, and illustrate the positive impact they have made. So obviously, the misconceptions are there about participating in Islamic finance industry. And if we know about these misconceptions, it is the right time for us to clear these misconceptions so that even young girls can determine their future and choose Islamic finance as their career. Strategy 7 is advocate for government policies that support women's inclusion in the workforce, particularly in finance-related sectors. This may include targeted incentives for companies that actively promote gender diversity. For example, if we think that the representation of women in Sharia boards are less, then it's the right time for us to have strategies at even company level to boost it, so that at least we can give more opportunity for those female Sharia scholars who graduated with degrees who want to pursue their career as a Sharia scholar. Strategy 8, facilitate networking opportunities for women within the Islamic finance sector. This can be achieved through conferences, forums, and networking events where women can connect with industry professionals. Strategy 9, leverage digital platforms to make Islamic finance more accessible to women. Develop user-friendly apps and online platforms that provide information, resources, and interactive tools related to Islamic finance. And the final strategy is engage with communities and religious leaders to promote the importance of women participation in economic activities, including Islamic finance, address cultural and societal norms that may hinder women from actively engaging in financial matters. So I guess that's it from me. Thank you very much. I will open the floor for comments or question and answers, if there's any.
So participants, the floor is open for questions and answers. Anyone? Okay.
So no discussion at all?
So, Dr. Aisha, if you kindly allow me, I have just one question. First of all, you summed up excellent way, and first of all, you clearly gave the perspective, especially Quranic as well as prophetic Sunnah, and the role of women in various activities, and excellent recommendation and very practical recommendation for the policymakers as well as the Islamic financial institutions to adopt such recommendations and make some strategies for more inclusiveness and equality. Just to add that in Pakistan, State Bank of Pakistan is also pursuing a very active role in terms of financial inclusion of women in the banking industry as well as in Islamic finance. And as part of their strategic 5-year strategic plan, one of the key KPI is the inclusiveness and diversity. Just to add that being a Pakistan, one of the leading training institute, Al-Sadiq Institute of Islamic Banking and Finance, Thaqaful, is also pursuing the agenda of inclusiveness and diversity, and more collaboration and in terms of contribution from women in the Islamic finance. Just a question that you said that in terms of role of women participation in Sharia board is extremely low. So can you please give us tell us in if there are any jurisdiction where they have started including women in this role?
Of course, Malaysia is a good example. where we have opportunity to be represented in the Sharia committees, not only within the Islamic financial institutions, but also at the apex level.
Okay.
And even if you look at the listed Sharia advisors at the Securities Commission level, you will see a lot of females as well.
Right.
So I think the best example would be Malaysia in that regard.
Great. So we have a one question from in chat board that any tip how women can manage work-life balance if they have a small family?
I mean, there's no universal tip that could be given because it is a very customized matter, right? But what I could say is as long as you have a proper support system, it could be possible. Support system here means within the family, if there's anybody who could support you, or in the workplace, if there's any incentives or any type of family-friendly opportunities are provided. For instance, when you go to work, you can take your kids, or when you go to work, there is a specific place where you could just keep the kids, and then once you finish your work, you can take them and go home. Kind of flexible arrangements are very important. And nowadays, after COVID-19, we see flexible working opportunities being given to a lot of women as well. So I think if flexibility in terms of working hours, how the work is done, work from home opportunities are given, that would be good.
Yes, great. Thank you. Uh, one or two questions, probably about how women can, join Islamic finance. Is there some sort of educational background is required, or there is a career guidance. If you can please give the participants for women to join Islamic finance industry.
Islamic finance industry is a very vast industry where you can have different types of knowledge and still join the industry. For instance, we need accountants, we need like people from finance background, business background, even sustainability background nowadays. It's not only Sharia scholars who are required to work in an Islamic financial institution. So therefore, whatever the background you are in, for example, let's say you did your bachelor's degree in a certain area, which is not related to Islamic finance, but if you have a passion to join the industry, you can do your postgraduate studies in Islamic finance and join the industry. For instance, as you know, INCEIF University is the world's only postgraduate university which is set up by a central bank that is specialized in Islamic finance. We do have students who are coming from different backgrounds, like some students are engineers, others are doctors, who just want to know Islamic finance knowledge, who can come and do the postgraduate studies and then join the industry by opening their own business or joining a financial institution as a professional. So what I believe is that, of course, to join the Islamic finance industry, you should have the basic knowledge of Islamic finance, and it is your duty to obtain this before you even attempt to find a job in the industry, whether as a salary job or as an entrepreneur.
Great, thank you. If there is another question, what is your opinion on women's participation in more as a cheap labor than in any commanding position in the industry? So, what I understand that there is a discrimination factor where women are marginalized or discriminated as compared to in terms of compensation as well. So, what can be the policy guidelines or recommendations to avoid such a thing?
Yes. Unfortunately, there are jurisdictions in which those things are happening. Therefore, government intervention is very, very important. We need laws, we need policies that will ensure that there is no gender biasness when it comes to these types of salaries and other matters. So I believe that the only way we could resolve those problems in those jurisdictions where these problems are is, number one, we need to create education and awareness, but that won't be enough. Therefore, government intervention, proper policies are required to do that. And I believe that in order to bring these policies into limelight, we need to ensure that enough women are able to, break through these barriers and become policy makers or even parliamentarians so that these agendas could be pushed forward. A lot of lobbying will be required. Unfortunately, there is no, magic lamp that could be used to resolve the issues. In those countries where these issues are there, it is there from immemorial time. Unless and until we push the agenda and, try our best to change it, things won't change.
Yes, yes. So there is another question. I think we have discussed about the role of women in Islam as a Sharia committee, but the question is, what qualification is required to become women Sharia advisor?
There is no specific or unique requirement for specifically for women. It is same as the male who are participating in the industry as Sharia advisors. So generally, you need to have a proper Islamic background. Different countries have different requirements when you want to sit on the Sharia committee or want to become a Sharia advisor. So you have to look at those rules and regulations and see whether you are qualified. And then there is a certain fit and proper requirement that you have to fulfill as well. So as long as you can fulfill the fit and proper requirement plus the competency or the knowledge experience requirement, you can follow the procedure to apply and get acknowledged. Or you can even attempt to become a Sharia committee member or Sharia advisory council member.
Great. So participants, we have, I believe,
one person has raised hand.
Sorry. Yes.
Mustafa, right?
Mustafa, you can unmute and ask question if you have. Please. Okay.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Now, my question is that, thanks for your presentation and for your lecture. My question is that today, as we know that we have some organizations and bodies that control Islamically, but they are not, they operate their business Islamically, but they are not controlled by Muslims. Can they work into this program and maybe they are willing to sponsor the woman for the finance education so as to have a knowledge about it? Because as we know that some takaful, they are in Singapore, they are put in Singapore, but Singapore is not an Islamic country. But can they work into it and say, let me help this ummah? Because in your when you mentioned the recommendation, the scholarship award for women from ISDB and some Islamic organization like that, you only mentioned that, but you didn't mention the other one. That's the question I'm asking. Can they work in and help us with these problems? Thank you.
Thank you very much for that question. It's a very good question. Of course, in my recommendation, the reason why I put limelight onto Islamic Development Bank is they do have scholarships offered for male and female without specifying a specific gender. So since they are the multilateral institution which is engaged in Islamic finance, it would be great for them to come up with such a program and offer it. So that's why I've highlighted it. Having said that, there is no rule which says that if the company is controlled by non-Muslims, they cannot do such good activities. So therefore, irrespective of who controls the company, Muslims or non-Muslims, if they want to have such programs, they can do so. In fact, for example, MasterCard, they have focused on giving scholarships to female students at INCEIF as well. So we see a lot of companies doing that as well. So to answer your question, it's not mandatory to be a Muslim organization. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sister Tasneem, if you have a question, please unmute and.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I'm from Bangladesh, and my question is about women's participation in economy or industry. In our country, our economy is more actually based on the garments industry. and thus garments is actually run by mostly women. And but we are it seems like that this women's participation in this industry are not changing that much of their lifestyle or standard of their life. uh, there is a report published a couple of days ago in Guardian that there was an interview of a garments worker of our country. She explain how her life is miserable in this economic position of this country right now, and she is forced to do prostitution, work as a prostitute. And in this situation, and we have for a long time we are seeing this type of situation of poor lifestyle and low standard of living of our garments workers. So my question is that uh, our women are very much involved in this industry or economy, but their lifestyle is not changing that much. So what can be done that women's participation and their standard of living can be go hand in hand? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Tasneem, for that very important question. So I believe that just because women are out there dominating a certain industry, automatically their living standard will not be positively affected. We just need to do something more. So what is that something more that needs to be done? That is your question, basically. So I believe that Islamic finance has potential to resolve the issue which you've mentioned. How? We all understand that if you don't have knowledge on how to manage your finances properly, then the money will come and go, and we won't have anything that will make our lives much more upgraded to something else which we want to achieve. So, number one is it is important to have programs for these women out there to tell them, to explain them, to make them understand how to manage their finances, because everything they get, they earn cannot be spent. If they want to do something extra, they need to save and invest as well and spend on things which are most appropriate or most needed. And furthermore, when it comes to workers, what we need to understand is that they might not have suitable banking products or financing products out there in the market for them to save the little money they receive. So therefore, customization of the opportunities available in saving investment of the money they receive is also very, very important, and that could be done by affiliating with the existing financial institutions in Bangladesh. It is something which is possible. So I believe that the first thing that needs to be done is to create awareness on how to manage personal finance, and then to ensure that there are enough opportunities available in the market for them to save their money or invest their money in a way they could manage their personal finance. So by doing this, I hope at least there will be a considerable positive impact on the living standard of these workers, inshallah. Hope I've answered your question, Tasneem.
So I think if there is no further question, so we can close the session, Dr. Aisha. So in the end, I again, on behalf of Al-Sadiq Institute, we are very grateful to you for presenting this excellent session. I hope all the participants have enjoyed this session, as well as the understanding and the recommendations, especially given by you, will be for good interest for the policymakers as well as the institutions who can facilitate the more inclusion of women in the workplace. And we also look forward so that you may you can, if you can in future as well, to collaborate with Al-Sadiq and give further lectures and educate us on these important topics.
Inshallah. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, participants, for your time. So we conclude this session and meet you soon again. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.